Attention shoppers, back-to-back blue light specials on aisle 57 and 58.
Welcome to Blue Light Special, the podcast for CPG brand marketers who want to lighten up their hustle in retail and real life. I'm Christine Wright.
And I'm Trevor Lewis. We're here to decode the mysteries of retail and give you some insider hacks to make your brand the talk of the shelf. Let's get into this week's episode. Welcome. Let's get into this week's episode where we explore the role of the consultant for emerging brands launching their products, but also the consultant role is popping up with existing and established brands as well, primarily to help them obtain additional space in the store. So I'm excited to jump in on this episode. I know last episode we had Justin, who is in fact a consultant and operates in this arena. So I think that is something we're going to piggyback on this. But look, the role of consultant it's everywhere now. I think we can even take a look inside our own business and say, hey, there's 3 to 4 consultants in our business working in different capacities and on different projects all the time.
I honestly think it's because, and really I saw just the growth after the pandemic, but there's so many more channels to be in now. And so many more places that you have to have content and that you have to exist in, that we're starting to see people specialize in those channels. And so we're asking for that expertise to be brought to us.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think the way that I also think about it is you're renting expertise. And before you would always try to have somewhat of a generalist or with a level of specialist that they would bring to the table. But not only for brands, but just in business in general, I think you're looking for some very niche expertise often. And it's definitely sped up post-pandemic for sure. But I think that's one thing that no matter your business, I love the idea of renting expertise. I also love the idea of bringing outside insight into your business. And I think within the framework that we work in, which is with brands helping them tell their story on shelf, we've just started to see the beginning of the consultant. In my opinion, I think to your point, there's consultants that are working to help you tell that story in app. There's consultants that are helping you, and that's a broker consultant, and it's basically you're renting their expertise of the category, the relationships, and everything they can kind of bring to that table. And that kind of broker is more of the buzzword that I think you hear from time to time in the CPG world. And then you also have Amazon. You have specific consultants there, and I'm sure there's a multitude of other consultants that are impacting businesses. But I think it's not going anywhere.
It's not. No. I think it's either consultant or broker. I think that they can be used interchangeably. But the way I've seen it and experienced it just from my business aspect is I partner with these people because they're helping brands to either launch into retail or gain more premium space in retail. And once that happens, then they're referred to me to then capitalize on that space. So the referral partnerships that I've had with consultants or brokers has been really good over the past few years. And then I've also had, as emerging brands come to us, then I've kind of reciprocated that back to, hey, these brands are looking to get into XYZ retailer, or they're trying to land end cap space. They're already in there. And so I will refer them back to the consultants or brokers.
Because what it appears, if you just kind of look at it, a lot of their expertise has been on the retailer side for the most part. And so they have a significant amount of understanding about, how it works inside. Let's just take Target as an example. And so I know that we recently had a great conversation with a consulting group that was Target specific brokers and specific specialists. And a lot of that's because they've sat on that side before. And so they're able to now, advocate, but also support. And it was an emerging brand that they were supporting because that was a brand new retailer that they haven't launched in. And so how could that brand rent expertise, I'm sure was intriguing in their business. And so that was just one example. But I think the commonality that we've seen is they often bring this expertise.
Yeah, they're usually, at least not always, but a lot of the times post-pandemic, a lot of the long time retail, aficionados left the big retailers, had all of that knowledge, and then started consultancies to then help new emerging brands or established brands to excel within that retailer because they had that knowledge.
So are there any, I mean, we've kind of talked about the broker consultant and understanding their play. Is there any other, I mean, I think you're seeing just in the creative side as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other common themes that you've heard or seen recently in which a brand isn't engaging a consultant?
Yeah, I will say it's either an individual consultant or broker, or there are a lot of agencies that have established themselves to do this certain thing. And it's not just within brick and mortar, it's Instacart, it's Amazon, they're also directing them with .com business as opposed to brick and mortar business, and how all of that comes together because they are all in those channels. I think one of the themes that I heard last week, even in a meeting with one of these companies, that consultancy or brokerage really took it to heart that they work with a specific retailer, they work with Walmart. And if they help brands launch into that retailer, and then that brand is not successful once the launch happens, they take that personally. Then it is seen negatively from the retailer onto that consulting agency. So those agencies and brokers, they're really not just getting that brand in store or winning space. They're invested in, okay, what are we doing with that now? How successful are those SKUs? How are we going to introduce new SKUs? The longevity of that brand in the store.
Well, thanks for sharing the story. And I think that's one of our objectives here is just kind of to highlight, what we're seeing and what we're looking for. So, I think that we're going to continue to look at how we can bring some of these specialists and consultants onto the show and really just learn from them firsthand. So I'm excited to be able to bring that to the future episodes. But, I think we can look at our own business and say, hey, consultants are impacting us in a positive way. There's a lot of direct, benefits that we're able to obtain. I think the consultants like it as well, right? They get fresh new projects. They're not working with the same thing all the time.
Yes, definitely.
So I'm excited to be able to have them onto the show, continue to learn a little bit more about their expertise and see where they fit in. So more to come, down the road.
Yeah.
And certainly if there's any specific consultants that want to kind of come on and tell their story, we'd welcome to have them as well.
We'd always welcome them because I feel like, at least for me, I like partnering with them and just sitting down with them every now and then just to learn, what are these brands up against just trying to get into that space? Because if I have that knowledge and brand comes to me later on down the line, I'm able to help them. I had a meeting last week with a brand that's already in Lowe's and they're already in Walmart and they only have one SKU in the pet category in Walmart. And she was asking me, how do I win premium space? The buyers really aren't paying attention to our SKUs. There's nothing really new and inviting about it. And the information I gave her came from experience with a consultant. Was they want you to elevate the category, not just your SKU. So let's look at, maybe you can partner with another brand within the category. Both of you can work together to help do category lift rather than just SKU lift. And that was something that I learned from a consultant. So anytime we can bring that to the table and bring that to our clients, it's just for the best.
So you heard it. We're out there looking for you, you consultants. And again, I know that you guys can impact brands in a positive way in a multitude of different areas. And so we're open to having any and all of them on and come in and kind of tell their story and their bit and what they do. So, let us know for sure. We're going to transition in to our next topic, which is always show and tell.
Look
so
what I have got
let's
for
get into it. Let's discuss show and tell. Christine, what are some of the things you're seeing that's out there?
Out in retail in the last couple of weeks, I am seeing kind of a growth and an explosion more of experiential. I actually was down in the Bentonville area a couple weeks ago, and Henkel was doing a pop-up shop. And not only just a pop-up shop, it was for their Schwarzkopf brand Keratin Blonde. So it was an experiential event where they took over actual brick and mortar space within a Walmart store. I think there had been some kind of pet in there previously. They're doing it in 5 stores. And they had an activation going on where people were actually coming in, it looked like a beauty salon, and they had AI mirrors sitting there, and people would sit down in front of that AI mirror and they could see the different hair colors before they actually went back and had their hair colored. But then they also had a parking lot experience going on with an Airstream and music and teams out there getting excited and handing out samples and things like that. So the parking lot experiences, the pop-up shops, those are things that I'm starting to see. And they only took over 5 stores in the Bentonville market, but the strategy was we have it for 3 months. Let's just kind of do some intermittent pop-up events, but at the end, they're going to do a big event for shareholders in June. So that was kind of the whole strategy behind it.
Awesome. And yes, I think that I have definitely personally experienced some of these. I think that it's also here to stay. I think it's brands got to think a little bit differently, and it really starts with how do I get budget to try some of this, which is an experiment for the most part. When you're trying something that's not been done, and especially, I mean, it wasn't free to produce those level of activations, and so. I think kind of a few episodes ago, we talked about brands needing to look at and plan for experiment budgets. I think that this is going to be one. And then you're seeing more uniqueness happen. I just saw, the dude wipes.
Yes.
They were
They're awesome.
everywhere leveraging media in places that you wouldn't traditionally look at least in my opinion. So I think I don't know if it was WrestleMania or what it was that they sponsored, but the entire ring of the wrestling event was
and that's perfect
dude wipes. Yeah. And they were trending. And so, and then I think I saw their CEO post on LinkedIn where he just showed a direct impact to their web traffic as a result of some of these activations that were taking place. But if there's one brand that I would say is definitely leaning into this, it's definitely those guys. You see Liquid Death and the Elf Cosmetics.
That was quite the partnership
as well. And they had some activations and pop-up experience that was kind of leveraging some of that, as well. So I'm excited. I love it when brands kind of challenge the status quo, and I think these activations give them that platform to really, how do we bring this to the
experience
masses,
to the customer,
and but also test in a way that we can potentially learn something and inform future decisions.
Well, yeah, the Henkel thing was perfect. You're only doing 5. Yeah, let's test it. Let's pull some data from this, and then maybe expand that, later on down the road in Q3, Q4.
Or certain components of it, right? Once you go to at scale, you may have taken all those different things that they learned, and you may say, hey, we're only going to take 2 of the 10 activations because this was why. And so now you kind of have that input to be able to, inform decisions as well. So good stuff for sure related to our show and tell. We're going to jump right into our next segment, which is Heard on the Streets, which some of this has to do a bit with some of the show and tell. So it's going to piggyback on that a little bit. I know that you mentioned just the pop-up experience, but continuing kind of hearing on the streets, what are some of the other trends that you're recognizing?
I'm hearing demoing is back. It obviously went away during COVID. I think it kind of started to make a little bit of appearance after that, but I think there's going to be a bigger push now. Demoing is definitely back, and we talk about experiential and pop-up. I think the whole trend and theme is interacting with the consumer, getting your brand or sample or whatever in their hand and interacting with them and letting them have an experience. And I know you've seen this quite a bit too, and some agencies out there that's all they do.
Yeah, one of them that I've been paying attention because they're doing a heck of a job is Lime Media. And I'm sure there's a multitude of other ones, but I know that I've just been, kind of watching the different types of products that they work on, and then how they've just kind of streamlined and created some efficiencies where there's a bit of a rent component. So think about it as, if you go to any major, I see them most notably in bar districts where they have a bike and someone's pedaling people around just to create a convenience. Now they're activating those bikes and they're telling brand stories and they're offering certain products as they're transportating people around. It was a big thing down at South by Southwest.
Yeah,
it's a big thing at most bar districts that have this. If there's a decent amount of walking distance from one bar to another. And so that's an example where a company like Lime Media is now offering brands the ability to rent that bicycle with that branding real estate, so you can activate it. So you think events, trade shows, where you're saying, hey, I have a captive audience, that people that
Well, March Madness
March
has been
Madness.
crazy in all the cities that have those games. That would be great.
Yes. How do we take this, experience to them? How do we introduce our brand in a
Mm-hmm.
unique way? How do we do it that's memorable? How do we most likely maybe get some free media because people are excited or think it's clever and funny, and so now they're capturing it on social and they're sharing. And then, I think that the more and more of these events that pop up, we will see brands recognize that, hey, our consumer base is there. How do we go play a role in being a part of the event, versus just maybe a billboard ad per se? Because I think in reason they're attempting to accomplish the same thing. But yeah, the KC Currents game, there
Mm-hmm.
was some of those opportunities there. I think definitely, Kansas City, we had the Big 12. Is it still called the Big 12? I don't even know. Big 12 tournament.
I don't know if it still is now.
Um,
You say that. I know basketball was here.
It was a basketball, and so they had a bunch of different activations
Mm-hmm.
down there. They blocked off the whole road, and so
I know that just in talking to brands and the hurdle that they saw trying to do kind of experiential, parking lot events or things like that was securing the assets to do that. And I think there are agencies out there, kind of like Lime that you talked about, where they have fleets in a warehouse of the Sprinter vans or whatever it might be, the Airstreams that are ready to be wrapped and ready to go now. So it's not as hard to secure those assets and pull the trigger and arrange these events as it used to be.
well, back to the experiment topic, right? What they have essentially done is lowered the threshold of entry into some of these experiments, because sure, you certainly don't want to own an Airstream to realize that was a terrible idea, and
Yeah,
now we're
what are we gonna
stuck
do with
owning
it?
this thing as
Mhm.
well. And so, I think that we're going to see more where you can kind of rent and test, and then if it's validated through that, then you may choose to go and purchase an asset like an Airstream. But
Mhm.
because I know that there's ongoing, one of our clients actually deploys an Airstream pretty regularly, but realize that there's a decent amount of maintenance,
I bet.
ongoing maintenance that's
Mhm.
required. Not everyone
Upkeep.
knows how to
Yeah.
operate and navigate the Airstream, and so that created some challenges. Whereas there's companies like, I think you mentioned Line Media, where they already offer that. They're also going to tee you up on how to be successful, what you to do, and most likely even go and set that in the parking lot.
You're not
Something
winging
as simple
it as much as you were before.
Yes, and as a brand, you get to rent that, you get to test it,
Mhm.
and then if it's validated, you can continue to kind of pursue those as well.
Okay. Well, we are going to move on to We Didn't Go to School for This. It's where Trevor and I relay what we would tell our 25-year-old selves now that we know what we know. And I think for listeners, the way to paint that picture for us is when I was 25 years old and you were, which for you wasn't that long ago, at 25 years old, what does a day in our life look like now? Because I don't think that that's what we expected when we were 25 years old. What does that day look like for you, Trevor?
It's a heck of a lot different, for sure. And when I think about my day now versus then, one of the number one things that's changed is just when I get out of bed.
It's probably much earlier now. Isn't
yeah,
it?
I mean, to give just full transparency into what did today actually look like for me. It's always a bit chaotic in my day, but it always starts pretty consistently. So my alarm every day goes off at 4:30 a.m. It's early, but I've became accustomed to it now, so it's not as bad as when you just start. Now, when the time changes, that doesn't make it any easier. That is not fun. So they should definitely change that. But 4:30 a.m., I'm up. My alarm goes off. I get to the gym. It's about a 10-minute drive by 5:30, and so then I really start. The first thing that I do is get to the gym and start to work out. And I've really found that that's been a game changer for me, because it's before I look at all the fires in my inbox that I got to deal with for the day. It's really my time, but I can go out there and get some small wins that starts my days. And so I've learned over the years that that is huge. And if I don't get that done, it feels like my whole day is off. So that's where it starts at. And then around 8:39, I have about a 35 to 45 minute commute into the office every day. So I typically get here around 8:30 or 9 once I'm, here. And so for today at 9 o'clock, we had a vendor meeting. So that was approximately 30 minutes long. Then at 11 o'clock, we have our standing sales meeting. And that's about a 30-minute long on Thursdays. And then we move into, we have our leadership meetings one day a week, and it happens to be Thursday. So it typically for me starts around 12:30. Let me back up. Around 12 to 12:30, I try to take a couple laps around the building every
You
day.
do. Yes, you're a lunch lapper.
Yep. So I try to get a couple laps in just to kind of debrief, level set, move my body a little bit. And then at 12:30, I'm back in the meetings. But specifically this Thursday was our leadership meeting, 12:30 to then around 3. So it's pretty long. And then, we're recording podcasts on Thursdays as well. So on Thursdays, typically around 3:15, we go into the studio, record the podcast. And then I will, my Layla has a soccer game tonight at 6:30. So every day, it typically starts at 4:30. It'll go at 6:30, and then she has wrestling practice after that. We'll get home around 9:30. And that's my day, typically
that's a long
5 to 6 days a week. It's quite a bit, but I'll tell you, it all starts like my day, the success of it is really predicated on what does my morning look like.
It dictates your day.
It dictates my day. And so I'm probably too much of a stickler about my morning routine. But
as your 25-year-old self, at what point did you kind of realize the importance of your morning and health and wellness? Because I guarantee
it
our
was
25-year-old
right about the
selves were not
same
that.
time of becoming a father and realizing that your sleeping habits are forever changed. So,
Without choice.
Without choice. I say that's probably about the mesh point of when this thing started to go like, oh my gosh, I need some me time. And there's a few times in a day that you can kind of get that. And it's typically when they're sleeping. And so I think I've leaned into that. I've been a morning person. Now, if there's not practice that I'm attending, I'm in bed by 8:30.
If I can be, I will be.
Totally. So last
early as
night I was
possible.
off the hook. I did not have any commitments. And so I was in bed asleep by 8:30. So it's not that I can just run around the clock all the time, but I'd say, early on, as soon as I, stepped into being a father in that role is whenever I really started to think about my day and how can I, maximize it. And thank goodness I figured that out early because I see people that go to the gym after work and that wouldn't work for me. I wish I could.
It's not easy.
Do that, but I will have thought of an excuse by 5:30 as to why I do not.
It's very easy because I'm the opposite of you. I have to do it at night.
Yeah, so find out what works for you, and then I think just you continue to iterate on what works, what doesn't work, and but I am a huge component. First thing, if there's a chance for me to go and exercise, I better get it done the first thing in the morning, and I've adopted that for a while and continue to.
Once it becomes habit and routine, it gets a little bit better.
Yep. Yeah. What about you? We all want to hear what
I almost probably should tell. It's completely different. Like last week's Thursday is different, way different than this week's Thursday, and it's really kind of dependent on client needs and things like that. Today wasn't so crazy. I get up at 5:00 in the morning because I have a 13-year-old to get to school, but I think we leave by 7:10. I'm yelling at him that brush your teeth, let's go. And I am the kind of person that I want to be up and dressed and finished before I tackle the 13-year-old because if we're trying to do it together, it doesn't happen. So
wisdom, right?
Yes. Get it all done, even if it means getting up earlier. And I still give myself about 15 or 20 minutes of drink my coffee and quiet time after I'm fully dressed and ready to go before I have to wake the beast and get him moving. But once I get him dropped off to school, I'm in the office. I will say that last Thursday I did that. I was in the office by 8:00. I had to pick up prototypes last Thursday. I'd already called the warehouse and said, I'm not happy with them at 6 a.m. Can you make changes? And they did. They love me. So I'm in here by 8 o'clock. I'm loading them up. I drove 3.5 hours to Arkansas. I had 3 meetings. I dropped off prototypes to 2 clients. I literally wheeled the luggage rack out to my car at the hotel from one of my clients, loaded it up and wheeled it in there and gave him all of his prototypes. We reviewed everything. I drove 3.5 hours home and pulled into the parking lot of baseball practice to pick my son up. And that is not what I thought my 25-year-old self would be doing.
No. That's why you wear that Superwoman cape that I tell you wear all the time, because well, what a day. And that was a day. That wasn't even a week. That all happened in 1 day.
Yeah, that was 1 day. But I got a lot accomplished, for me. That I did get a lot accomplished that day.
Yeah, and that's, you've learned over time that that's what it takes.
It is what it takes, at least in our business and servicing our clients. And when somebody has a meeting with Walmart, you get in the car and you drive down there and take them what they need.
You do. And you also, when something's not right and you know that it has to be right.
I just wasn't happy with it the night before, and I know the warehouse comes in at 6 a.m. and I was ringing their phones. Can you just add this little piece and I'll be happy? And they did. They did it.
Well, teamwork makes the dream work, yes. But definitely a testament to, all of the things that you do and accomplish in a given day. And my goodness, that is a heck of a day. So kudos to you for sure on that. All right. So to conclude for our last segment, we want to give you a little glimpse into our minds. We all have those moments where we reflect, learn, remind ourselves of certain truths. For me, it's my memo to myself. And for Christine, it's her I am for the day. It's a chance for us to give you a bit of vulnerability for us, share our thoughts, and maybe some of it will resonate with you. So for today, I'm going to put you on the hot seat to start again. Tell me a little bit about what is your I am.
Okay, my I am, for those that don't know where it comes from, I have a group of accountability ladies, my tribe, that every morning we text each other, what are you today? Kind of like you said, how you start your day sets the precedence for your day. So we're asking each other, what are you? What are you stepping out in the world and embracing with today that you're going to live by and that's going to guide you? And I will say that mine speaks to the day that I just described, but I am thankful. It's a crazy schedule and it's a crazy day, but looking out at the world and what other people are dealing with, I'm thankful to have a job that might require me to drive 3 hours one way and 3 hours back. But I'm thankful that I have clients. I'm thankful that they give me opportunities. I'm thankful that my son is healthy, and that I'm thankful that he can play baseball and I can support that. So kind of giving a different perspective of, rather than, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, which I am, but I'm very thankful for the things that exhaust me.
Awesome. That's terrific. And I don't know if Jackie, our producer, can drop in the baseball clip of your son taking that stroke.
Oh yeah, we had 2 out of the park home runs. But I drove to Branson this weekend. So.
Yeah, and she drove to Branson for a baseball tournament all weekend. And maybe we can get our producers to drop in this video, because the young man's swing was legit. Yeah. My memo to myself right now, is really that I believe growth comes through, and we've kind of alluded to this a bit, but growth comes from failure, but then it's the corrective action that you take to fix it. And so right there, I think that's where growth actually happens. And I've been telling myself a lot that, because, whether it's my personal life, work life, anytime that you're trying to push boundaries, you're inevitably going to run into some friction, some things that break. And so it's really, in my opinion, that I've been at least telling myself is it's what you do and the action you take to fix that's the sweet spot of where growth happens. Mm-hmm. People often have a tendency of thinking you can grow without running into failures. I don't believe you can.
I just had this conversation with several people because they asked, how did your son do in Branson? And they played all weekend and they won every game until the championship, and they lost by 1 run. And all I kept telling those boys was, it's baseball, boys. You have to fail. What you guys do with this and what you learn from it is going to make how you are as a player is going to make you successful, but what are you doing with that failure?
Yep. That was my memo for sure. Again, just always enjoy this part of the show where we kind of talk about that. I'm sure all of you guys are you're either telling yourself something positive or negative is what I've kind of learned.
Two.
So you might as well figure out how to give yourself some positivity, self-talk, and I think that's huge. All right. Finally, join us for next week where we'll dig into the life of a brand manager. Don't miss our conversation where we talk all things brand managers.
And thanks for listening. Keep your questions and comments coming. We love tuning in to what you want to know about helping your brand stand out in store. This podcast is a production of In-Store Design Display, the go-to expert for guiding and elevating your in-store experience. Our wordsmith, Julie Edge, and mix master, Jackie Vera, make all of this possible. So a big thanks to them and the entire team at In-Store Design Display.
Stay tuned for our next episode on YouTube or wherever you consume podcasts. We'd love to hear from our listeners, so please drop us a line and tell us what you want to hear about retail and real life.